Hello everyone, Hyper here, and in today's video I will be explaining to you how to import my UI, first of all my WeChorus and ElvUI, and also how to modify it to fit some specs that I don't necessarily play. So I do my best to have a wide variety of WeChorus for as many specs as possible, but there's a few that I just don't play and will probably never play. However, if you do and you like my UI style, I will show you how you can take a pre-existing pack and simply modify it to fit that specific class or spec that you're playing. If you're watching this video, it means that you're either a Patreon supporter or a Twitch subscriber, so first of all, thank you very much for your generous support. Amazing people like you are who allow me to make YouTube videos and play the game for a living. So first of all, let's take a look at how you actually import my UI. The first thing you want to do is, after you've subscribed on Twitch or supported me on Patreon, is to make sure that you have your Discord linked to that specific account. You can just find it in the Discord settings under connections. After that's done, you should see a channel called Supporter UI. So currently I have both BFA and Shadowlands versions up, but soon this will only be the Shadowlands version. Once you have that, you want to go ahead and open the spreadsheet, and you should see something along these lines. I will edit this a little bit and add some pictures and guidelines on here as well. But there's a few different sections. So first thing that you will want to import is my ElvUI. And if you don't have ElvUI installed, you need to go to their website and install it through there. But after you have it installed, there's the profile link that I'm using. You just go ahead and click on it, which opens up Wago. And this is where you actually import the profile from. So you will click the copy ElvUI import string button. It's circled in red, you can't miss it. And then go ahead and go back to the game. So once you have that copied to your clipboard, you want to go ahead and log into the game. And if this is the first time you've installed ElvUI, this window will pop up. Simply click skip process, because all those settings should be imported from my profile. Your game will reload, and then right after, you want to type /EC in the chat window, which will bring up the ElvUI settings. You will go to profile, click on import profile, and then you will Control-V, which pastes the entire profile string. So if all this text shows up, then you want to click import now. For me, it says that I already have one just like it. I'm not going to import a duplicate, but for you, it should simply switch over all the settings. We can import this as Hyper too. So as you can see, everything's changed here. We can go ahead and close out of that. A few things don't update right away, most specifically fonts and nameplates. So you want to go ahead and exit out of the game, then log back in, and those should be updated. And if they haven't updated, if your fonts are like wonky and your nameplates don't work, then just go ahead and repeat the import process and it's going to import everything. That's just a little issue on ElvUI's end. So after you have ElvUI imported, you will want to make sure that your keybinds are set. So you want to go to, again, the ElvUI settings, action bars, and here you want to go to keybind mode, which then brings up this window, and you want to hover over all of these buttons and hit escape. That's going to go ahead and clear all of your keybinds, and then you can just hover over each one and press the keybind that you want to assign to it. So for example, I have C bound here, I hit escape, that clears it, and then I can hit C, which then rebinds it. Then once you're done, you can hit save, and that's going to solve your keybinds. So that's pretty much all you have to do for ElvUI. Now to import my WeChorus, it's just as simple. You want to find the spec, or the class rather, that you're playing, that you want to import for. In this case, I made a Warlock character just to show you guys how it works. And you will see that there's 4 different boxes that have links in them. So active abilities, these are abilities that pop up in the middle of the screen while they're running. So for example, as a Warlock, if you press Dark Soul, it will show you a countdown of how long you have left on the buff. Static is your resource bar, any procs that you get, and in Warlock's case also your dots. Center bar is the center console that has like all of your spell cooldowns on it, and then the utility bar is all of your utility spells in the center of your screen. So you just want to go ahead and open all 4 of these. I'm just going to do one because the process is the exact same, and you just click copy WeChorus import string, Then you go back to the game, you type in /WA in chat, which brings up the weak aura menu. You click new aura, import, Control V, and it's going to pop up. If you're importing for the first time, it's simply going to pop up a button that says import now. You click it, then you click done, and you're good to go. If you're updating your weak auras, then this window will pop up, and you want to click update auras. And if you modified the way they look, you can disable the display tick box. If you want to update that as well, you can keep it enabled. And then you click import as update, and that's going to update your weak auras to the most current version. So all of these steps were for classes and specs that I actually play and I have weak auras for. So now I'll show you how to modify a pre-existing weak aura pack to fit a spec that you play and I don't. So you will want to open the weak auras menu, and you want to import all 4. So the static group, the main, the center bar, the utility bar, and the active ability groups. You want to import all 4 of those from pretty much any class that you want. If you know that there's similarities between 2 classes, then try to go for one of those. So for example, if it's like a dot class, then Assassination Rogue and Feral Druid function very similar to each other, so those 2 are going to be easier to modify. But in general, you should have a pretty easy time modifying any of them. Once you have all 4 of those groups imported, as you can see here, I have static, utility, actives, and spell group. Those are the 4 that you need. On Rogue, we have an extra one just because rogues are special. We can start modifying it. So I just like starting with the spell group, and I'm going to go ahead and open it. And you will see a bunch of abilities. So this is your main abilities that have cooldowns on them. And as a rogue, you just open either your spellbook or your talents, and we'll go through all of them and see which ones we would like to add to it. So for example, as a rogue, my equivalent to Shadow Blades is Vendetta. I'm going to duplicate it here, but in your case, you can just rename it to Vendetta, and then you will change the spell ID. So we go Vendetta, and then you will go to the Triggers tab. Under the Triggers tab, there's a number. This number shows up whenever you hover over an ability. So if you can see, for Vendetta, the ID is 79140. If you have LVUI installed, this will show up, or if you have the add-on called ID tip, it will also show this number. So now we simply type this number into the box, 79140. Hit enter, and as you can see, the icon changed to Vendetta, and that's it. Now Vendetta is added. The last thing we need to change is the load condition. So for some of these, they will only load if you have a talent selected or if you're a specific specialization. So for Vendetta, we want to change the talent specialization to Assassination. You can do this a lot easier if you just like if you click the top ability, go to the bottom, shift click all of them, and then you can just change all of them at once. But I'm just doing it one by one to show it as an example. And also, if it's a talented ability, you can select this talent tick box and then select the talent that it should load on. So for example, there's no reason for me to have a marked for death weak aura always load. I only want to load a marked for death weak aura when I have marked for death selected. If it's a base ability, then this tick box doesn't need to be checked. And you do this process for all of the abilities. For spells that have 2 charges, make sure that you modify a spell that is like this. So for example, Shadow Dance has 2 charges. If there's another spell in the game that you'd like to add that has 2 charges, find a weak aura that is equivalent to it, because you need to modify both of them since they behave a little bit differently. But base abilities that just have 1 charge and they have a certain cooldown, you simply modify the spell ID, you modify the load condition, and you're good to go. If the spec that you're trying to set up has more buttons or more weak auras than the one that you imported, you can simply just click on a few of them and duplicate them. Or if your spec has less weak auras than the pack that you imported, then you can just like control click as many as you want and then right click delete the ones that you don't need. So that's pretty much how you modify the weak auras. And that goes for all the groups and all the weak auras except for the resource bars. My resource bars are somewhat unique for each of the specs that I play, but if your class or spec has like a generic resource like mana, or like energy, then you can use one from a different spec that also uses the same resource. You will just need to change the load condition. However, if your spec has class resources, you will need to go to WAGO and like find a class resource weak aura that you can import into the pack and just fit it in the same slot where mine are. For the active group, if you want to find the spell ID of a specific buff that you're tracking on yourself, you need to make sure that you check the spell ID of the buff itself and not the ability. So for example, for Feint, I would press Feint, then hover over the Feint buff up in the top right corner, and I would read the spell ID. In the case of Feint, they're the exact same, but there are some spells in the game that have different IDs when it comes to the buff and the ability. And same goes for debuffs on your target. So if I'm going to try and track a debuff that I need to put up on the target, I will simply cast the ability on them, and then I would hover over the icon that pops up above their nameplate or their uniframe here, and that will give me the spell ID. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy my UI. If you notice any issues with the weak auras or elf UI, or you have any issues at all, please feel free to let me know, and I will try to fix them as soon as possible. And again, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.